The most obvious election fraud was never the voting machines. I'm going to talk about those later. The best evidence we have of fraud concerns the absentee ballots. Let's talk about Matt Braynard's voter integrity project. Matt Braynard is a data expert employed by the Trump campaign. We all remember when on election night, Donald Trump looked poised to win. He was up in every single swing state except Arizona. Then all of the swing states stopped counting the votes. Over a period of several days, Trump's lead vanished in every single swing state. This was mostly due to the counting of absentee ballots. Given the appearance of fraud, Matt Braynard solicited donations he could use to conduct research on the election. Of course, GoFundMe immediately shut him down because, God forbid, you try and verify the results of the election. After receiving $650,000 in donations, Matt Braynard started the Voter Integrity Project. The Voter Integrity Project used the money that it raised to hire call centers. Matt Braynard focused on absentee voters. The first contact was made with absentee voters who voted in the election. Secondly, contact was made with people who requested absentee ballots who did not ultimately vote in the election. Let's look at the first set of data. These are people who the states say requested absentee ballots. However, when surveyed, large percentages of these voters denied that they had ever requested absentee ballots. Also, these ballots were never counted in the election. So a significant percentage of people who are recorded as requesting absentee ballots in these states deny that they ever requested one. That begs the question, who did request these absentee ballots then? What ended up happening to them? You might respond by saying it doesn't matter. These votes weren't counted anyways. Okay, fine. Let's move on to the next chart. This is people who requested an absentee ballot. When surveyed, they indicated they mailed the ballot back. However, the state indicates they never received the ballot. Let's look at Arizona, for example. How did 50% of the people who submitted absentee ballots have their ballots magically disappear? There's no way over half of the absentee ballots just got lost in the mail. To believe that would be absurd. So how could any Arizona election official possibly certify the election results? Well, maybe it has to do with the fact that the person in charge of the election in Arizona is an unhinged lunatic who has called Trump voters Nazis for months leading up to the election. It's not just Arizona though. These percentages of lost votes are all massive for the other states as well. Had these mysteriously lost votes been received and counted, it would have changed the outcome in every single one of these elections. Then we have absentee voters who say they didn't vote at all, yet the state shows they voted. You'll notice the margins here are much lower. States were a lot more likely to throw away absentee votes than they were to create fake ones. Why? It all comes down to a phrase coined by the CIA. Plausible deniability. Let's say I send in an absentee ballot for Trump. Later, I found out my vote wasn't counted. Well, the election department has plausible deniability. Maybe the ballot just got lost in the mail. If the election department records a vote under my name when I didn't vote, it becomes much harder to explain. Even so, the percentage of people indicating they never voted, yet despite the fact their vote was counted, would be enough to flip the results for Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. While doing his research, Matt Braynard also stumbled upon additional evidence of fraud in Wisconsin. Wisconsin allows voters to request a special ballot if they're indefinitely confined. What's notable about these ballots is they do not require people to have a valid ID in order to vote. In the 2016 election, 8,989 people voted with these ballots. In 2020, 169,282 people voted this way. That's a 1,783.21% increase. Matt Braynard is also going through the process of confirming whether the addresses on absentee ballots are legitimate. He stated he's already found significant fraud in regards to voting addresses in Georgia. Now, we don't have the numbers from him on this yet. He has said, though, that he's going to post a full research paper today. So given what we've learned from the Voter Integrity Project, what other evidence could we expect? Well, we would expect there to be some evidence of fake ballots being counted. There would also have to be evidence of a lot of legitimate absentee ballots that were destroyed, which, of course, is the exact type of evidence we have in abundance. We've got numerous affidavits from election workers who saw suspicious ballots being brought in. Some of the witnesses say they even saw election workers filling out the ballots. Others indicate the ballots were pristine. They lacked any of the creases you would expect from a ballot that would have been mailed to someone. Witnesses indicated that they were marked with a perfect circle for Joe Biden only. In fact, thousands of ballots exist where the only vote was for Joe Biden. What about evidence that lots of ballots were being destroyed? Well, what if I told you we had video evidence of trash cans full of ballots being delivered to a shredding company?
Susan Knox, November the 20th, Friday morning. I'm watching all of these ballots being shredded now. Unbelievable. Let's move up and let's see what else is going out. Yep, here we go. What are they shredding? Massive amounts of ballots right there going out.
How do I know there's ballots in there? Well, the woman who recorded this video walked up to them and took a photo. Notice how they drew a shredder on this box. Is it possible Georgia hired a company that employs illegal immigrants to destroy these ballots? It would make a lot of sense. Illegal immigrants are going to be reluctant to come forward as whistleblowers. They're also a lot less likely to appreciate the significance of what they're being asked to do. Before you just write this evidence off, consider this. This was collected by Lynn Wood, the guy who represented Richard Jewell, the lawyer who helped free Kyle Rittenhouse. We also have evidence that poll monitors were not allowed to observe the votes. There were several vote centers that actively tried to hide what they were doing. Now, if you believe this is a compelling case of fraud, then Trump wins. He gets a victory without having to prove anything regarding the Dominion voting machines. So let's talk about Dominion. People like to latch on to this because it's a very simple explanation. It's a lot easier to understand the concept that the voting machine stole the votes than to understand the voter integrity project. That isn't helped by the fact that there are extremely shady circumstances surrounding these voting machines. Many on the left have voiced suspicions that Dominion voting machines could be used to steal elections. Elizabeth Warren expressed this view. Amy Klobuchar also said as much. John Oliver himself spent about 20 minutes talking about this on his show. What's shocking and unbelievable to a lot of people concerns the voting software. Smartmatic, the company who designed the software used in many of these machines, is a Venezuelan company. It was designed specifically for the purpose of rigging elections and shifting voting around. The manual for the Dominion voting machine specifically advertises the ability to do this. Both Dominion and Smartmatic have ties to numerous partisan Democrat entities. That includes Joe Biden's transition team. Globalist boogeyman George Soros is also connected. Also, weirdly, Antifa. I think it would be fair to say that Dominion and Smartmatic haven't exactly inspired confidence in their reaction to this backlash. They've closed down offices. We've seen current and former employees wipe references to their employment with these companies, as well as delete their entire social media profiles. Reps from the companies have no-showed official proceedings. They've also lawyered up big time. While all of this is highly suspicious, it doesn't prove any fraud occurred. Do we have any actual evidence that the machines were used to commit fraud? Well, sort of. On election night, the New York Times published real-time voting data from Edison. That data is publicly available and voluminous. A Twitter user named Sean, aka RedPillX2, wrote a script that tracked votes in this data. His data showed that a significant amount of votes were shifted around in the swing states. The machines would flip Trump's votes to Joe Jorgensen. The votes would later flip from Joe Jorgensen to Joe Biden. This happened in Wisconsin, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. One of the states with the biggest vote flips was Texas. It appears whoever designed this vote-shifting algorithm hoped Texas could be flipped, but there were just way too many Trump votes. So why would the machines flip to Joe Jorgensen before Joe Biden? Well, remember, this data is being fed to the mainstream media. On election night, the media rotates between states showing the vote totals for Trump and Biden. The media never shows the vote totals total for Joe Jorgensen. By laundering votes through Joe Jorgensen, the algorithm can trickle in votes to Biden without anyone realizing what's going on. Of course, though, that didn't exactly work out perfectly. The data from non-competitive states showed that votes were shifted from Joe Jorgensen to Joe Biden. No votes were taken away from Trump, though. So why would they do this? My only thought would be the purpose of something like this would be to make sure that Joe Biden also won the popular vote. Someone else took this same exact data and used it to create charts. This shows you the votes, both positive and negative, received by Joe Jorgensen. Is this the sort of data that you'd expect from an honest and fair election? The third-party candidate getting massive numbers of votes and then getting massive numbers of negative votes? I don't think so. It should be very rare that any votes get subtracted from any candidate. So can Trump take this data and then win in court? Probably not. There's two big flaws with this data. First of all, the New York Times only had this data feed going on election night. When all of the swing states stopped counting the votes, the election feed went offline. The second problem is that all of this data comes to us from the New York Times. It doesn't come directly from Dominion or Smartmatic. So if the Times election feed had something wrong with it, that could have caused the distortion in the data. If Trump wants to win the voting machine argument, he needs to get the election data directly from the voting machine servers. Here's the problem though. Dominion and Smartmatic are foreign companies. They're outside the jurisdiction of US courts. Without the election data, it's impossible to prove whether any cheating occurred or not. That's why I believe Sidney Powell was separated from Trump's election team. That would allow Trump's legal team to focus on the more winnable theory. That is, that there was systemic fraud in how the absentee ballots were processed. The final thing I wanted to discuss is the information war. On November 21st, 2020, a car clipped into a group of Trump supporters in Wisconsin. They were there protesting election fraud. In my view, this is a sensational news story. Yet the media hasn't covered it at all. It may as well have never happened. But here's a video of it being played right now. That's how deep we're in the information war. Even sensational news stories are being suppressed. It's no different from how the Chinese media covered Tiananmen Square. Now, people have criticized me in the past saying I'm inconsistent. How could a Joe Biden administration oppress conservatives while simultaneously defunding the police? Look, I'm under no illusions that conservatives are going to be sent to gulags. If the plutocrats win, what will happen is that conservatives will be unpersoned. They'll censor us. They'll cut us off from essential services. They won't prosecute people who commit crimes against us. If we commit a crime, though, if we do anything wrong, we'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible. This isn't some new concept that I came up with. It's called anarcho-tyranny. We're already experiencing it today. It isn't a conspiracy theory, it's something that's already happening. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed to my channel, please support small YouTube channels like mine by subscribing. Thanks.